Rain tapped gently against the windows as you stepped inside from the cool evening air. The familiar warmth of the hearth welcomed you before a single word was spoken. The innkeeper looked up from polishing an old teacup and smiled, as though he had been expecting you all along. "You've arrived just in time," he said softly. "There is still a little warmth left in the fire." You settled into the old wooden chair beside the hearth while he quietly prepared a fresh pot of tea. The room smelled of cedar wood, honey, and old books. Outside, the rain continued its gentle rhythm upon the roof. For a while, neither of you spoke. Silence was never uncomfortable inside the inn. It simply became another guest sitting peacefully beside the fire. The innkeeper placed a warm cup of tea before you. Its gentle steam curled upward into the amber light. Then he turned toward the tall bookshelf behind the counter. His fingers slowly wandered across rows of worn leather journals before stopping on one wrapped in faded blue linen. Carefully, he lifted it from the shelf. A few tiny threads of silver embroidery still shimmered faintly across its cover. Returning to the fire, he brushed away a thin layer of dust with the sleeve of his coat. "This journal," he said with a quiet smile, "belongs to someone very few people remember. He never built castles. He never ruled a kingdom. He never carried a sword." The innkeeper rested one hand upon the old cover. But every full moon, he made certain that no child in his village had to face the darkness alone. The fire crackled softly between you. Outside, the rain became gentler still. The innkeeper untied the faded ribbon that held the journal closed. Its pages carried the scent of linen, cedar, and many peaceful winters. He opened to the first page. His eyes softened. "This is the story of the moon weaver." The room became wonderfully quiet. Only the fire continued to whisper as the first page turned. And somewhere far beyond the mountains, where moonlight lingered a little longer than anywhere else, the story quietly began. Far beyond the cedar mountains, where evening mist lingered long after the sun had gone to rest, there stood a quiet little village. It was a place where every home kept a lantern glowing through the night, not because the villagers feared the darkness, but because they believed every light was a welcome for someone still finding their way home. At the very edge of the village stood a small stone cottage wrapped in climbing ivy. Its roof was weathered by countless winters. Its garden bloomed with pale white flowers that opened only beneath the moon. The cottage belonged to an old weaver. No one could remember when he had first arrived. Some believed he had always lived there. Others whispered that the moon itself had guided him to the valley many lifetimes ago. Every full moon, as silver light washed gently across the mountains, the old weaver opened the wooden shutters, lit a single lantern beside his loom, and began his quiet work. By sunrise, another beautiful blanket would be finished. The villagers called them moon blankets. The moon blankets looked ordinary beneath the morning sun. Soft, light, woven in gentle shades of ivory and silver. Yet every child in the village knew they carried a quiet kind of magic. Those who slept beneath them never woke from frightening dreams. Storms became gentle rain, Dark forests became peaceful gardens. Lonely nights became warm memories beside a glowing fire. No one questioned how such blankets were made. The villagers simply accepted them as another quiet blessing, like spring after winter or stars after sunset. Whenever a new baby was born, a moon blanket would mysteriously appear on the family's doorstep before dawn. No one ever saw who delivered it. When an elderly villager spent their final night surrounded by loved ones, another blanket would quietly be folded across their bed. The old weaver never accepted payment. If someone left bread, fruit, or fresh milk by his gate, he would always share it with neighbors before the day was over. "The moonlight was never mine," he would often say with a gentle smile. "I only borrow it so others may sleep in peace." For many years, the villagers believed the old weaver only worked after everyone had fallen asleep. But one autumn evening, a curious little girl named Elia stayed awake longer than she had ever had before. She wrapped herself in a warm cloak and quietly climbed the small hill overlooking the weaver's cottage. The full moon had just risen above the mountains. Its silver light bathed the valley in a peaceful glow. From where she sat, Elia watched the old weaver step onto his wooden porch. He did not carry baskets of wool, nor bundles of thread. Instead, he simply stood beneath the moonlight with his eyes closed. The valley became perfectly still. Even the wind seemed to pause. Then something extraordinary happened. Tiny strands of silver light began drifting down from the moon itself. They floated through the night like delicate ribbons, shimmering as they gently settled into the old wooden loom. The weaver smiled softly. With patient hands, he gathered the glowing threads one by one. No strand was ever hurried, no movement was ever wasted. It was as though he wasn't weaving cloth, but quietly weaving the peaceful dreams of everyone sleeping beneath the same moon.
Elia returned the following full moon, and the one after that. Each time she watched from the same quiet hill without making a sound. The old weaver always welcomed the moon in the same gentle way. He would light a single lantern, open the wooden windows of his little cottage, then wait, never impatient, never calling for the silver threads to appear, as though he understood that beautiful things could only arrive when they were ready. One evening, the moon hid behind drifting clouds. The silver threads did not come. The old weaver simply sat beside his loom, smiling quietly as he listened to the wind moving through the cedar trees. An hour passed, then another. Only when the clouds slowly parted did the moonlight return. The glowing threads descended once more, dancing gently through the cool night air. Elia finally understood. The old weaver was never weaving faster than the moon. He was weaving with it. From that night on, she remembered a lesson she would carry for the rest of her life. Some gifts cannot be rushed. They arrive only when patience and kindness quietly make room for them.
One winter evening, after many months of quiet watching, Elia finally gathered enough courage to walk to the old weaver's cottage. Snow fell gently across the valley. The full moon shone brightly above the cedar trees. As she reached the porch, the old weaver looked up from his loom and smiled, as though he had known she would come. "I've been expecting you," he said softly. Elia looked around the workshop. There were no baskets filled with thread, no shelves stacked with wool, only the wooden loom, the glowing moonlight, and countless finished blankets folded neatly upon the shelves. She could not hide her curiosity any longer. "Where does the thread come from?" she asked. The old weaver looked toward the moon before answering. "It begins there, but it is never made of moonlight alone." He gently lifted one silver strand between his fingers. "Every thread also carries something unseen, a mother's lullaby, a father's quiet hope, a child's laughter, a promise kept, a kindness remembered." He smiled as the silver strand shimmered in the lantern light. "The moon simply helps us see them." Elia listened without speaking. For the first time, she realized the blankets had never been woven from magic alone. They had always been woven from love. As the seasons quietly passed, Elia visited the cottage whenever the moon became full. She never interrupted the old weaver while he worked. Instead, she sat nearby, listening to the steady rhythm of the wooden loom. Clack, pause, clack. The gentle sound blended with the whispering cedars and the distant song of the river. One evening, the old weaver handed her a single silver thread. It felt impossibly light, almost as though she were holding a beam of moonlight itself. "Try," he said with a warm smile. Elia carefully placed the thread upon the loom, but the moment she pulled it, the silver strand faded into the night like mist. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I've ruined it." The old weaver chuckled softly. "No, you simply held it too tightly." He looked toward the glowing moon above the valley. Moonlight has never liked to be forced. It only stays with gentle hands. Elia nodded thoughtfully. The next thread she received, she touched with patience instead of fear. This time, the silver light remained, and somewhere within the quiet rhythm of the loom, she began to understand that kindness was not only something we gave to others. Sometimes it was also the way we held the smallest, most fragile things in our own hands. As winter slowly gave way to spring, the village noticed something they had never seen before. The moon blankets seemed to change with the seasons. On cold nights, they carried a comforting warmth, like sunlight remembered from a summer afternoon. During warm evenings, they became cool and light, as gentle as the breeze drifting down from the mountains. Children often wondered how the blankets always seemed to know exactly what was needed. The old weaver only smiled. "Blankets don't listen with ears," he would say quietly. "They listen with hearts." One afternoon, a little boy arrived at the cottage carrying a blanket that belonged to his grandmother. Its edges had become worn after many years of gentle use. "I don't want a new one," the boy whispered. "I only wish this one could stay with me." The old weaver unfolded the blanket with great care. He closed his eyes for a moment before running his fingers lightly across its silver threads. Then, beneath the next full moon, he carefully wove a few fresh strands of moonlight into the old fabric. By morning, the blanket looked almost unchanged, only a little softer, a little brighter. As the boy hugged it close, the old weaver smiled. "The best things," he said, "are never replaced. They are lovingly mended so they may continue warming the hearts that already call them home." Years passed as gently as drifting clouds. The children who had once fallen asleep beneath their moon blankets slowly grew into kind and thoughtful adults. Some became bakers, some became gardeners, some traveled beyond the mountains before eventually finding their way home again. Yet no matter how far life carried them, each of them kept a single moon blanket carefully folded somewhere within their home. Not because they still feared the dark, but because the blanket reminded them that someone had once cared enough to make the night feel safe. One quiet evening, Elia noticed that the old weaver's hands had begun to tremble. His movements remained graceful, patient, but slower than before. She quietly stepped beside him. "May I help tonight?" she asked. The old weaver looked toward the silver moon before gently nodding. Together they worked in peaceful silence. One gathered the moonlight, the other guided it across the loom. The rhythm remained unchanged. Clack, pause, clack. As the final thread settled into place, the old weaver smiled. The blankets were never meant to keep only children warm. He folded the finished cloth with great care. They were always meant to remind the world how kindness quietly continues from one pair of hands to another. One summer evening, as the full moon rose above the cedar forest, the old weaver quietly stopped his loom before the final blanket was complete. Elia looked up in surprise. For the first time since she had known him, the steady rhythm of the workshop had fallen silent. "Is something wrong?" she asked gently. The old weaver smiled and slowly shook his head. "No." He stepped onto the porch and gazed toward the village below. Warm lights glowed from every window. Children laughed as they chased fireflies through the gardens. Some of those children carried moon blankets draped over their shoulders as they played. The old weaver watched them with quiet contentment. "Listen," he whispered. Elia stood beside him. At first, she heard only the wind moving through the cedars. Then she noticed something else. Laughter, soft songs drifting from open windows, parents whispering gentle goodnights. Peace. The old weaver nodded. "Do you hear it?" She smiled. "I do." He looked toward the unfinished blanket resting on the loom. "For many years I believed I was weaving comfort into these blankets." His eyes reflected the silver moonlight. "But I was mistaken. The blankets were only a beginning. The true warmth was always carried by the people who shared it with one another." And beneath the quiet moon, the unfinished blanket seemed perfectly content to wait until morning. Autumn arrived quietly, painting the cedar valley with shades of amber and gold. The mornings became cooler. The evenings came a little earlier. Yet every full moon, a warm light still shone from the old weaver's cottage. One evening, Elia noticed something different. The shelves that had once been filled with neatly folded moon blankets were almost empty. Only one remained. She gently touched its soft silver fabric. "Have there been more children this year?" she asked. The old weaver smiled as he carefully adjusted the threads upon his loom. "No, the village has not grown." He looked toward the single blanket resting on the shelf. "The blankets have simply traveled farther than they used to." He explained that villagers often carried them beyond the mountains when life led them to distant places. Some wrapped them around newborn children. Others offered them to lonely neighbors. A few quietly placed them over the shoulders of strangers who had nowhere warm to sleep. The blankets were never meant to stay in one village forever. Kindness, like moonlight, was brightest when it continued its journey. Elia looked toward the open window. Far above, the full moon illuminated valleys she had never seen. She smiled softly. Perhaps somewhere beyond those distant mountains, another child was falling asleep beneath the gentle glow of a moon blanket, never knowing where its story had truly begun. Winter returned once again to the quiet valley. Snow settled gently upon the rooftops, the cedar branches, and the little stone path leading to the weaver's cottage. Inside, the old loom stood ready beside the glowing lantern, but this winter the old weaver paused more often than before. His hands still moved with care, yet each thread seemed to ask for a little more time. Elia noticed the change without saying a word. Whenever she arrived, she quietly prepared warm tea before sitting beside the loom. Neither of them felt the need to fill the silence. The gentle rhythm of the shuttle, the whisper of the fire, and the soft wind beyond the windows were conversation enough. One evening, as silver moonlight drifted through the workshop, the old weaver folded another finished blanket and placed it into Elia's hands. "It feels different," she whispered. He nodded. "It is. There is a little more gratitude woven into this one." Elia smiled. "Can gratitude become thread?" The old weaver looked toward the moon. "It becomes many things. A gentle voice, a patient heart, a warm home, and sometimes a blanket that reminds someone they are never truly alone." Outside, snow continued to fall without a sound. Inside the little cottage, another quiet gift was ready to begin its journey. When the next full moon arrived, Elia found the old weaver waiting quietly beside the loom. The silver threads drifted gently through the open window, yet he did not begin weaving. Instead, he smiled and stepped aside. "I think," he said softly, "tonight the moon has come for you." Elia hesitated. Then, with calm and careful hands, she guided the first thread across the loom. The silver light did not fade. It flowed gently through the fabric, as though it had been waiting for her all along. The old weaver watched without speaking. When the final thread settled into place, he nodded with quiet pride. The moon never chooses the youngest. It chooses the gentlest. Outside, the full moon shone peacefully above the cedar valley. Inside the little cottage, the loom continued its gentle song. Clack, pause, clack, exactly as it always had. Spring returned with quiet beauty. The snow disappeared from the cedar hills, and small white flowers opened beneath the morning sun. When the villagers awoke after the next full moon, they found a freshly woven moon blanket resting on the doorstep of a young family. No one had seen who left it there. The old weaver's cottage remained peaceful. Its lantern still glowed. The loom still stood beside the open window, but from that night onward, Elia was often seen sitting quietly beneath the moon, her hands moving gently across the wooden loom. The villagers never asked questions. Some stories did not need answers. They only needed to continue. And each full moon, as another blanket quietly found its way to someone in need, the valley remembered that the greatest gifts are not the ones we keep, they are the ones we gently pass on. Many years later, travelers passing through the Cedar Mountains often asked about the little cottage beneath the full moon. The villagers would simply smile. "If you arrive with a peaceful heart," they would say, "you may find a blanket waiting when you need it most." Some visitors searched for the old weaver. Others searched for the loom. Most found only a quiet cottage, soft moonlight, and the comforting scent of cedar carried by the evening breeze. Yet somehow, everyone who left the valley carried a little more warmth than when they had arrived. Perhaps that had always been the true gift, not the blanket itself, but the quiet reminder that kindness, once woven into the world, never truly unravels. One quiet evening, Elia folded a newly finished moon blanket and placed it gently upon a wooden doorstep. She looked up. The full moon shone brightly above the cedar trees. For a moment, she thought she saw another gentle figure standing near the old cottage. An old man, a kind smile, a familiar cloak. Then the drifting mist softly passed between them. When it cleared, the cottage stood peacefully beneath the moonlight once more. Elia smiled. She did not wonder whether she had imagined it. Some memories never truly leave. They simply become part of the places that taught us how to love. Holding the last silver thread in her hand, she whispered, "Thank you." The breeze carried her words quietly into the night, and somewhere above the silent valley, the moon seemed just a little brighter. The moon slowly climbed higher above the quiet valley. Its silver light rested gently upon the little stone cottage, the old wooden loom, and the blankets folded with loving care. Inside, the lantern continued to glow. Outside, the night remained wonderfully still. Every full moon, another moon blanket quietly found its way to someone who needed comfort. No one asked how, no one searched for answers. Some mysteries were meant to be treasured, not solved. As the years passed, the villagers taught their children a simple tradition. Whenever they wrapped themselves in a moon blanket before sleep, they whispered 3 gentle words into the quiet night. "Thank you, Weaver." Perhaps the words were carried by the wind, or perhaps the moon was still listening. Either way, the valley always seemed just a little warmer before dawn. Long after the old weaver's name had faded into legend, the moon blankets remained. Some grew old with the families who cherished them. Some were lovingly mended. Some were passed from grandparents to grandchildren. Each carried quiet memories stitched into every silver thread. On peaceful nights, children still fell asleep beneath their gentle warmth, dreaming of moonlit forests, soft rivers, and welcoming homes. No one remembered exactly when the tradition had begun, but everyone hoped it would never end. For as long as the moon continued to rise above the Cedar Mountains, someone, somewhere, would always sleep beneath a blanket woven with kindness. And that simple thought made the whole world feel a little softer before morning came. Years passed like quiet seasons beneath the same faithful moon. The little stone cottage remained. The cedar trees continued to whisper in the evening wind, and every full moon a warm lantern still shone softly through the window. Travelers who happened to pass the valley often paused for just a moment. They could never explain why. Some said the place felt strangely familiar. Others simply smiled without knowing the reason. Perhaps kindness leaves its own light behind, a light that never asked to be seen, only felt. And whenever moonlight touched the old wooden loom once more, another gentle story quietly began, woven one silver thread at a time, for someone who had not yet discovered that the world was still filled with quiet miracles. The innkeeper gently closed the blue linen journal. For a little while neither of you spoke. The fire crackled softly. Rain whispered against the windows, just as it had before the story began. He poured the last of the warm tea into your cup. Steam curled gently into the quiet room. "There are people," he said softly, "who spend their lives chasing greatness." He smiled into the dancing firelight. "And there are others, well, who quietly make the world a gentler place." He rested one hand upon the closed journal. The moon weaver never asked to be remembered. He only hoped that every child would sleep without fear. The innkeeper looked toward the rain beyond the window. If you ever have the chance to make someone's night a little warmer, even with nothing more than a kind word, I hope you'll take it. Outside, the rain slowly began to fade. Somewhere beyond the mountains, the full moon quietly emerged from behind the clouds. Its gentle light touched forests, rivers, rooftops, and perhaps a small stone cottage where a lantern still glowed beside an old wooden loom. The innkeeper returned the journal to its familiar place upon the shelf. Then, with a peaceful smile, he welcomed the comforting silence once again. Until another evening, until another story, the wandering inn would always be waiting for you.